One of the questions that we get asked repeatedly is, how do we take this knowledge, how do we take this methodology and integrate it into our DNA? So part of the work that I do is helping organizations do just that. The two speakers that you're going to hear from today, in my opinion, have done an exceptionally good job of integrating corporate visions into their DNA. Lynette Simmons from Intelsat and Kathy Meyer from Kodak Alaris. I've had the pleasure of working with both of them and seeing the work that they've done. And I'm not going to steal their thunder by giving you a big history and telling you what they've accomplished, because that's what they're here to tell you. But I am going to tell you something that they will not tell you, which is that they are incredibly courageous. Because driving change and this degree of change in an organization, make no mistakes, is a tremendous act of courage. You have to fight a lot of internal and external forces to keep things going, and you have to be singularly committed to making this methodology work. Every client that I've worked with on the methodology side integrates it into their organization a little bit differently, and every client that I've worked with rises and falls, and their success depends on how committed they are to actually making it work. What I can tell you is that both Lynette and Kathy have been exceptionally committed to making this work. Their success, their results show for themselves, but it does take incredible commitment and intestinal and professional fortitude to be able to make this work. So I've heard their stories. You're going to be really excited to hear their stories as well. They're going to each tell their stories, and then we're going to leave the floor open for questions as well. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Lynette Simmons from Intelsat.
Thank you. Thanks. Whoops, I knocked my water over. I'm just going to set this down for a second.
Okay.
So of course you know these numbers are going to tell a story. Any guesses? 22,000, that refers to how many miles out in space our satellites are, which is pretty cool. And you think about, as you try to develop stories about something that has to do with space, you're starting with a great foundation of something that you would think would be pretty unique. 21, it's the number of marketers we have in our organization. And they're really smart, wonderful people, and I'm one of the 21. So anyway, you would think with this type of asset, 21 marketers could tell a really easy, differentiated story. Problem is we have some competitors that look just like us. And in fact, about a year ago, if you were to print off the About Us section of our website and our closest competitor, the exact same words were in both descriptions, just in a different order. And we challenged our executive team to tell us who was who, and they couldn't. It's been 1 year since I spoke here last year, and so I'm here to tell you about the transformation we've had in that last year. And now we're going to what I can do better with this hand situation. Okay. So if we take a look at the beginning, and there's a whole presentation online that you can see our whole story of how we started down this journey. But in looking at my team, we're broken out into several areas. I have a product marketing team, so they're focused with our product management group, and they're responsible for our initial go-to-market messaging. And they're divided across the vertical sectors that we serve. On top of that, I have a regional marketing team. So I have people in region that wake up and worry about what's going on in Asia with our marketing plan, how's our message resonating. They take what that product marketing team does and actually give feedback on it. Oh, it needs to be different in this region for this reason. On top of it, I have channel marketing team that's focused on our relationships with specific channel customers and how they are taking things to market. Where's our joint value proposition with our channel partners? And then an integrated marketing team that's responsible for creating all of our outbound customer-facing messaging, includes with that our demand gen capabilities, websites, events. We do about 150 industry events, so all the speaking engagements. They're preparing all of those materials, which is great to have that many people focused on marketing, and I know that a lot of organizations don't have those resources. But I also have 20 content creators, And as we looked across the past, we had product messages, we had regional messaging. Everybody was telling a story in a different way, and everything seemed to be pretty campaign-driven. What do we need at this moment, this time? And so we looked different based on what region you were in, what product you were talking about. There was nothing cohesive about what we were doing. Of course, our campaigns were full of features and benefits of all of our goodness. And at the same time, we were struggling to implement CEB's Challenger marketing and sales methodologies of just getting to the finish line of a differentiated message. So in those early days, we came across corporate visions, and we decided to contract across each of their offerings at the time. So we had a power positioning workshop, then we went straight through to creating all of the materials and collateral under their Power Tools program, as well as a power messaging. And we thought all of it was fantastic. Anybody that participated was shaking their head, yes, this is the way to go. But we also had some problems. How do I scale that? I just told you I have 5 product lines, I have 5 regions. That's a lot of messaging to create. And as much as we love having corporate visions in, can't quite afford to have them in for everything that we needed to do. So we had to figure out, how do we make this part of our own DNA? And how do we learn to become self-sufficient over time? And at that point is when we entered into our enterprise license with corporate visions. And what that looked like is all of our participants first actually participated in a power positioning workshop, or they observed one. Then they did a 2-day methodology training, followed by writer certification. And then we had a separate session for wireframe templates of how do you take that conversation roadmap into all of your different creative outputs. And some adoption tips just from our lessons learned on this is we had all hands on deck. Even if somebody wasn't responsible for creating a conversation roadmap in their job function, we made them learn how to do it. I mean, going through the methodology training, understanding the process, it does change how you begin to think. So we had every single person on the team go through it. Really pay attention when you're in that course, because you will find out you have some brilliant creative writers and you had no idea. It was shocking to find out who really just grasped onto it fast. And they become your champions later on, and we'll talk about why that matters. And then as you come out of that, you can't complete an entire conversation roadmap. You get all the fundamentals and you're well on your way. But we forced each person to finish what they started. And by finishing what they started, we actually had 2 complete conversation roadmaps. We had people broken up into teams that they got to the finish line. But then we relied back with our consultant to have them give us pointers and basically be the, not editor per se, but provide feedback and challenge the team to improve upon their work. After they got to the finish line with that, then we started creating the assets. We went and used the templates to create PowerPoint presentations, infographics, incorporate some of it onto our website. So that's what the team did immediately coming out of it. So they were immediately using the skills that they learned. So if we go forward to today, talk a little bit about the campaign that's on the right side of the wall over there. Our product marketing team for a new product launch created a conversation roadmap in-house, all by themselves. We did, of course, show it to our consultant for feedback and pointers on how to improve upon it. And then they actually took it a step further and created all of the POV and solutions whiteboards, including the drawings, the entire script. They did the whole thing. And then our regional team took that conversation roadmap, and they're using it to frame speaking engagements that we're having in region. On top of it, they took the point of view whiteboards, solution boards, and regionalized it. Most of the time, it's just changing facts, figures, statistics. The core of the story holds up globally, but they're actually making it more personal for their region. And then our integrated team, from that same conversation roadmap, created a lot of assets. So everything from the infographics, there's blogs, social media, lead gen campaigns, et cetera. So little additional thoughts, transformation can actually happen a lot faster than you think. So if you look at our timeline, our first workshops that we held that Corporate Visions ran, we did that in July of 2014. We signed our enterprise license agreement in January of 15, and then we put the whole team through the methodology training and certification in March. So really March through December, they were building assets off of those first 2 conversation roadmaps and incorporating that into web and some other areas, those 2 stories. And then in March of 16, they did the entire end-to-end process themselves. And so every person on the team had a part of that, whether if they were in web, our event managers incorporating that messaging into our exhibits, et cetera. So really from training to doing it on their own, 1 year to be completely self-sufficient. So I'm very proud of them. I think they did an amazing job. Some other tips for adoption. If you're like us, there are hundreds of documents in your company. You can't go fix them all overnight, but you can decide that from this day forward, we're incorporating that methodology. But you can also look for opportunities as they arrive. We launched a brand new website in March of this year. All of our landing pages for our products and solutions, we rewrote all of them at that time. We didn't have time to go back and do all of it before, but knowing that we had this deadline, we were coming up with an entire new look, feel. We wanted it to match everything else we were doing, so that was the time we chose to do some backwards fixing. Same thing with collateral as we go into a trade show and you've got to take a few collateral pieces. That's a good time to start looking at, all right, how do I pull some you phrasing into here? How do I pull our power positions in and start working? It doesn't have to be a complete scrap, but you can do an edit on it and be right there. Top-down commitment is critical. So on our side, we're very lucky that our corporate strategy map that the entire company works from, it starts at our management committee, CEO level, and I just went blank on customer transformation is part of that, of providing a differentiated customer experience. So everything my team is doing is built into that strategy map as well. So everybody is aligned from a corporate perspective on changing how we interact with our customers and giving them a differentiated experience. But you can empower champions in your team. So as I mentioned, as you're going through that training, really look and see who's a natural and put them in as kind of a project manager, program lead when you have a new product launch coming, where they're actually getting all the right people together. They're doing the first round of editing, that it always doesn't have to go all the way up to your top person or your consultant. So build those leaders within your team to actually enforce the methodology in what you're doing. And then of course, leverage your performance management goal system. Every person on my team had goals this year, well, from actually starting in 2015, related to this methodology adoption. And then some other tips for adoption. If you work with creative teams that are in different departments, or in our case also, PR is in a different group than marketing, get them familiar with the methodology. We've had them sit in power positioning courses so that they understand how we're building stories. Press releases can be transformed to follow the same methodology. And shortcuts can work. So this story is about Roxy. This is my parents' latest, what is she? A border collie. And if you're familiar with border collies, they are best known for herding sheep. And this is the second border collie my parents have owned. The first one, they read all sorts of books on training, and that dog was still a terror all the way until her last year of life. And she saw a leaf blow across the backyard. She was barking and trying to chase it. I guess she was herding leaves. But they got Roxy, and they heard about a trainer that specializes in border collies. So they sent Roxy away for 2 weeks when she was 6 months old. That dog came back and is 100% perfect. I mean, they didn't have to do a bit of training. So the point of this story is, When you partner with a good company with a great methodology, it's a shortcut. You can get there a lot faster than trying to do it on your own. That's it. All you.
So this microphone is just a prop. You're not going to hear anything out of it, but it's for the recording, so don't expect to be hearing anything different, but I have to have the microphone. Lynette's was hidden, so you didn't see that. So anyhow, it's amazing. Lynette and I have not met, and Lynette and I never saw each other's slides, and I'm looking at her, and as they're a little bit different, the story is the same. So it's kind of interesting to see that we had a lot of the same things, but my story is you have to rewind back to 2014. We had just come off a year, 2013. Sales were nowhere near where they predicted our sales should be. January forecast, everything looked just as, I won't say the word bad. We're still making lots of money, but not where they want us to be. It's always, you got to have more and more and more. And so our leadership team is sitting around the table, and they say, well, geez, we really don't have, we're like Lynette. I've got 4 regions that I have to deal with, so it's localization, processes are all over the place. And they said, we really need to standardize on a methodology. And they're talking around the room, and they're talking about spin selling and all this other stuff, and someone says, let's go with solution selling. We sell boxes today. Let's jump to the right and start selling solutions. So our CMO is in the room and says, okay, marketing is going to really need to help with this. So let us take off and figure out all about solution selling and marketing drive this change. Comes to myself and my colleague Jackie Horn. So we're like 2 partners in crime here. She's in Chicago, I'm in Rochester. And we start investigating this and just start doing selling all this other stuff, and you're not going to believe. The first article we find, Harvard Business Review, solution selling is dead. We're like, oh my God, we just took everyone charging down the path, sales all excited, we're going to have a new methodology, we're going to talk about solutions, and we got to go back and report, all right guys, solution selling is dead. But what we found out in this article is they talked about insight selling. That's the new way of doing it, challenger selling. And so we started investigating that, and we find CEB. And CEB, we still work with CEB. They're wonderful with ideas. They're wonderful with some statistics and knowledge. But when we started working with their process, you got to have like an army of people. And I'm talking, it's Jackie and I. There's no army. I'm so jealous of how many people you have. It was the 2 of us. And, our our division is $500 million. We have a couple hundred salespeople, but we sell mostly through distributors, value-added resellers. So we have thousands of people that have to have this message and stories. And so the 2 of us are looking at this saying, oh my gosh, CEB their methodology was just like all over the place, and it's a huge PowerPoint, and you start here, and you go here, and you come down here, and you come over here, and then back up to here. And we're like, we're never ever going to be able to get anyone to do this, let alone we spent a couple of months and had nothing to show for it. We were kind of very discouraged, and we were going to a SAMA conference. Like we were trying to still thinking, our salespeople, customers, because to the VARs and the resellers. They were not talking to end customers. That we needed to have more strategic selling type principles. And so we contacted SAMA and said, hey, you guys do all kinds of education. You have all these education tracks. Is there anyone there that could help us do this? We're trying to do this insight selling. And they go, oh my gosh, we have this guy, Tim Reister, CVI. Sounds like exactly what you're trying to do. Why don't you talk with him? So we had a call with Tim, and everything he said, he gave us the whole power message, sales pitch, and we're just like, oh my gosh, this resonates, this is something we can do. And when you talk about being simple, this sounds complicated, but it is very, very simple. And we were so excited with this, and he goes, well, all right, wait a minute, I'm not a sales guy, I'm gonna get in all kinds of trouble, I gotta get you a sales guy. And so we got hooked up with Mike Miller, and then the rest was history. And as Mike stepped us through the process on board, he said, I want you to do due diligence around this. Here's some customers. I want you to talk with them, find out what they did. Well, it turns out on this list was someone I worked with a couple years ago. So I call her up and ask her, what's your take? She goes, we had phenomenal results. It was great, but I've got to warn you, you have to be prepared, because when you start down this path, there's no turning back. You're going to change everything that you do in marketing. Jackie and I are looking at each other like, we didn't quite comprehend what she was saying, but we're like, okay, well, yeah, we'll move forward. So this journey is going to turn everything upside down with what you thought with marketing and how you did messaging. And you just have to be prepared, because when you do one, you're like, oh my God, just like Lynette was saying, you want to do this, you want to do this, you want to do this, and you just have to learn how to bite the elephant up into chunks. So anyhow, we started in May. We said we signed up for our first power positioning workshop. And so in May, we had our business research people, right? They get together because we're going after this new product. Well, it's new. It was like 2 years new. But we had no traction on it. It was in a new market, new everything. The salespeople didn't know what to do with it. So we said, here's a perfect example, right? You can't get any worse than what the situation is. We're not going to jeopardize the crown jewels. So we're going to go after this one. So we didn't have a lot of people that even knew about this space, this product. So we stumbled into a very good takeaway, and that was we not only brought our own couple of salespeople that were doing this, and our marketing people that supposedly knew how to position this product, we brought in customers. And the customers actually helped us craft this message. So we had our little power positioning workshop, and then in October, because it was summer, and Europe vacation for months and everyone else is on holiday, and you can't mess up the fourth quarter or third quarter close. We did this in October, and I decided, instead of working through marketing, the only way this is going to work is I've got to get sales on board. Marketing can keep pushing and pushing and pushing, because we've done that before, but I need sales to raise their hand and say, we want this, we want more. So we crafted this first power messaging workshop. I brought in the 4 VPs around the world and brought in their top selling people. And I figure, okay, these were my largest skeptics. They're like, oh my God, we're seasoned professionals. You can't teach old. This is going to be a waste of our time, but we get a trip to Rochester. We get to see some things, get to see the corporate people. Okay, we'll do that. Well, before I get to the results, there's one thing I needed to mention. When we did that power positioning workshop, I had mentioned when we did the CEB stuff months and had nothing to show for it. When we did this 2-day intense thing, we were having so much fun. Our CEO had to come in and say, what are you guys doing in this room? You're laughing, you're clapping, you're hoo-hoo-hooing. Well, that was our power positioning workshop. And it was very intense. We were very happy with what we came out of it. But the best part was, in 3 weeks, I had all my messaging assets delivered to me. My POVs, my solution stories, my coaching videos, my conversation roadmap, my because part of the problem is when you're in marketing, right, you can come up now find the time to create everything that you need to create. So these guys are great, they're talented, this stuff just popped, we were doing back and forth, editing and stuff, but it was a phenomenal process. We got it done, 3 weeks, everything is done. So back to the story. So we get done with this power messaging and all these skeptics, and what do you want to guess what happened? We did a little survey and what the results were. Any guesses? 47% said it was the best training they ever had. 53% said it was some of the best. We had 100% said, I can use this information immediately and it will impact how I do my job. Another 100% said, we need more of this. But the most astounding one was here in the middle. I finally understand how to sell this product. Until we gave them an understanding of how it helped a customer solve a problem and how we were differentiated to provide that value back, they were just spinning because it was a software project with artificial intelligence, and they were just spinning around all the bits and the bytes and the cloud and the this. They had no idea what this thing was doing. And so now they were so excited. They knew how to sell this product. And when we did the ROI, we added like $100 million to the pipeline in 90 days with this training. So we're like going, this is great, this is great. And so then, as we walk out of this meeting, our sales VP say, you have to now train all of our people on this. So we had our very first ever in the history of our company, a global kickoff meeting. Usually do these things regionally, cultural, you bring in customers. So this time they said, we're only focusing on training, and we're doing power messaging training. So we trained 145 marketing and sales individuals over the course of the 2 days. And then Our sales director for the USNC had this thing called speed dating. Has anyone ever done one of these speed datings where customers are qualified, they have projects, they have budget, they're looking for new technology, to be there, they come in for free, and you get a 30-minute meeting with these people. It's great because they're already qualified. We had a 2-team person. One person, so we ended up saying, you know, these are the people we wanted to talk to, these are the people who said they wanted to talk to us. We ended up with 12 30-minute meetings over 2.5 days. How we started. How we ended up is we had our VP of sales was doing the point of view, drew it out, and these people were just like, oh my gosh. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. And they ended up with everyone at that meeting wanting to meet with our VP. And that VP said, so now the word gets out about this, and again, it's that new product in the new space, that what he did in 2.5 days, he had more activity and more success in 2 years than he had in 2 years. So now this is being broadcasted. So now everyone's coming, we need more messaging, we need it now, and we need it for our core products. And I'm sitting there like, oh my God, there's the 2 of us. How do we scale this? What do we do? And enters in Leslie. Power positioning methodology training rescue. So we ended up training 14 marketing people across all facets of marketing. We brought them in to learn how to do the power positioning, to how to write, not just deliver the message, but how to create these messages. So we did every facet of marketing. All 4 regions came in so we could get all the languages, everything understood. And we started simple. So this was May of last year. So we started simple, just like you heard Lynette say, start simple. So we started with our ugly product brochures, right? They're all about the product is this. It's this big. It goes this speed. It uses this paper. Sexy about skiers, right? So it was all about the is. And what we did is we made our brochures now, our customer's the hero. We show a customer using it. We took away all the specifications, and now we talk about what our products do and what they mean for our customers, and it has made a huge difference. And then our PR guy, like you said, the gem. We never would have guessed this guy. He's off doing his own research. Every time we have to do a product announcement, instead of just saying, we launched this product, yay, slap yourself on the back, he's getting statistics around what that product is doing for our customers, bakes it into his press release, and then talks about our challenges and how we're helping and how this product is going to help. So it's even changed even our product releases, our social, and now it's gone into case studies, infographics, everything. And then this year, we went really big, and that's what's on the board on the left-hand side. We had 2 global campaigns, and we did an A/B test here. Jackie went off with one product, and they just started with an agency and went down the path of let's just go create a campaign. We started off with, let's start with the power positioning workshop. We got that done, got a great message. We squeezed it in at the end of December. They started in November. We started in December with the power positioning, and we ended up launching in May, and they still haven't launched because they're spending all this time trying to now figure out who's my target, what's the message, what do I say. Well, we were able to come up with this message. We had it in time for our now regional kickoff meeting, so now all of our salespeople were trained. We created with that conversation roadmap all those assets that you see over there on the left-hand side, including digital mail, conventional direct mail pieces, digital email pieces. We actually, to try to get into some research, we actually are doing some polls too because we want to repeat this cycle. This campaign's going to go for a year and we want to refresh. So we've got polls built into our campaign so that way we can research to find out what topics they may be interested in so we can tweak the content, still leveraging our conversation roadmap. We have our salespeople now saying the same thing the campaign is saying, so we're just all and we're starting to see some great traction because what we've done is we skipped MQLs and we went right to SQLs. We have people raising their hands saying, I want to talk to someone at Kodak Alaris, not all this lead nurturing and all these, we get that too, building up the lead scores, but we had, in one weekend when we launched this in India, 74 people raised their hand. It went in through LinkedIn, InMail. 74 people raised their hand saying, I want to talk to someone at Kodak Alaris. And now our salespeople are like, oh my God, now we got to go. What I have to do, I fly back tomorrow. I get in at midnight. And at 6 a.m. on Thursday morning, I'm doing a refresh on the power messaging for these people because now they have 74 leads they got to go talk. The other thing that we did that we're very excited about is our website. We went from one where it started off with, we had this like that little Zen thing with a little saying, and all you saw was that here's our products and here's our support, and that was it. We had nothing that backed up the conversation to say the why change and the why us. It just went right to our products. And what we just launched was a whole new website that we found, and it was interesting. What is our story? What is our message? Well, we're here to help solve your data chaos or your data anarchy. And we found 5 applications that cut across all the major verticals that we now talk about. What are the challenges within those 5 applications and how we are uniquely positioned to solve those problems. So we never had that middle marketing type content. We jumped right into products. So we're very excited about this, and we're getting a lot of hits, a lot of reviews, a lot of different things that we never saw with our old website. So we're extremely happy and proud. And the funniest thing is, not funny, but through this whole thing, our CEO changed, our president changed, and our CMO changed. And when I told our CEO what we were doing, he said, oh my gosh, I never knew that what I did was called insight selling, so I'm on board. So he made sure that when he handpicked the CMO and he handpicked our president, that they inside selling, power messaging. So I have support at the top, and now we're driving it across the bottom, but with salespeople raising their hands saying, give us more. Now, just like Lynette said, we don't have everybody on board. There's room to get more people, but when people hear the success, and even in Germany, where they say you never can do anything in Germany, I got the sales cluster leader. He wouldn't even have his salespeople do it. He got up and did that messaging, and they were just astounded, the customers. We've never seen anything like this. So you come in with a whole differentiated approach in a very, very, I wouldn't say congested, but a very Me Too type place. And so we're very excited, and so now we have to figure out how to even scale more. And I was already talking, we've got to get the sales manager coaching, but we added in the playbook this time. I saw the playbook last year when I was here, and so we added the playbook in this year. Leslie's team did a great job getting that out of that conversation room. And it's a cool playbook that salespeople are just eating up. So again, it's very simple when you have the right partner. And so we're just very excited to be on this journey. So we're 2 years into the journey, and we just need to get a little bit more action here with our sales, because we're changing over our sales. And now it's how do you keep them all engaged? How do you keep that momentum when we're going through so much change? So thank you. That 93% of first sales meetings do not get past go. They don't get to the second meeting because they do not inspire, they do not captivate, they do not capture the attention of the person to see that there's a way out of what they're doing and that there's a better way. We did not get that. The CEB thing was just like way too complicated for our people, and we didn't have the army behind it to properly make that work if you could get it to work. And so now our salespeople don't have to worry about all this gyration. They just go in and tell a story. And they're experts now at telling that story, but that story also tells them how the products actually help, and they never had that before. And we never got that sense. So if you think about it, if you look at your CEB templates, I think it's like 6 steps. This is 2. Why change and why us? It's so much simpler, and it's easier for them to grasp, and it's all this storytelling. CEB was still PowerPoint. And here we've got the storytelling. And storytelling, it just is more natural for people to tell a story, and it is more memorable. And then if they do the picture, that even helps.
This type of information. So if you want to look at refining your account plan templates, or account-based marketing is a path you want to go down, they have some sort of resource that you can leverage. So I think we have a consultant with CEB that we work with, and we can tell them about challenges we're having. They'll always have a resource for it. To me, the corporate visions was, how do you go from knowledge to implementation and do it fast? So if you're lucky, we're both very lucky that we get the option to use both.
Other questions? Yes. Yes, all the slides for the sessions will be available to everybody. I believe on the 22nd, you'll be getting an automatic email from Corporate Visions that will have a link to download all the slides. Yes? Other questions? Because I have a question for Lynette. So you had mentioned in your presentation about this idea of empowering champions in your organization. Can you talk a little bit more about how do you identify those gems, those people who just really, are the ones that you want to entrust with this process?
So, I have a team of direct reports. A couple of them were just stellar and amazing. And when people are in the class, they're reading their stories out loud that they're developing. And it was shocking how some people in those classes, the words, just beautiful writers. And it wasn't their job to write. And that putting them in charge of a project, so if, I have one person in mind that, was somebody that we could turn to and say, okay, all the digital assets that you're going to create from the conversational map, I want you to map out the whole program for that. What are we going to create on the demand gen side of it? That individual's in charge of it. They're working with a team to come up with those assets. So it's not Lynette leading every project and dictating the workflow. Instead, the people that are really strong, put them in charge of it, help them own it. It's part of their development plans as well, that you can put somebody and say, you are going to program manage an entire product launch, and give that to somebody as a goal. And it's a huge goal. But imagine when they get to the finish line, their performance is looking pretty good for the year. And you have them, of course, adoption along the way. Yeah, so it's interesting. Obviously the digital side is the easiest place to see it because you can measure everything. Everything else beyond that gets a little fuzzy, because especially you don't know in the field, are they using the materials? Are they doing it? That's an entire different program that you have to set up metrics around. But from your digital efforts, we had two things going on at once. One is we communicate to our existing base, and we've always had pretty good response rates there as far as open rates, click-throughs, et cetera. But recently, with the move from, megahertz only selling into solution selling, we're going after completely new audiences and buying lists. Things that we never did before. And with the campaign that's listed up there, our open rates are 24%, which I think is fantastic. Click-through rates are about 9%. So, as far as lead gen activities, granted, I didn't have a basis before because we weren't doing that type of activity, but the results we're getting are very good.
And Kathy, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, we're seeing the same type of things where our open rates and our engagement are much, much higher because we're speaking to them about their problems. They're the hero. It's not about us. And it just seems to resonate much, much better. And like I said, we had this one part of our campaign that they just skipped right over reading content, doing everything else. And like I said, one weekend we got 74, I want to speak to sales. And we ended up, for the first week of the campaign, across 3 geographies, because Europe was still on vacation, so they still haven't launched, we ended up with 88 SQLs in 1 week, which was unheard of. We've never done anything like that before. So that was very exciting. Because they took so much time trying to figure out what to do in their messaging and how to say it, they backed into a very, I would say, not a very effective process to come up with what is the messaging, but it took a lot more time than just saying, hey, we're going to come up with a messaging. And they were supposed to do it across 4 different verticals, and they ended up only doing 1, and they're only ready to launch 1 in a month. So now what they're doing is, Kathy, can you quickly put together some power positioning workshops so we can get at the other 4 verticals now that we kind of backed into it, which ideally now line up with what we've put up on our website. So we'll be building it for there, which will in turn be leveraged to our website. So, we're using it both ways. Like when we did the BPO, because this was such a big message that we need to do and it was global, what we did is we brought in the CVI consultants to actually do the workshop to, mentor us and coach us through it. And we watched the writer do it and worked with the writer. But we've been doing a lot of the smaller things ourselves. So we go back and forth between whether it being 100% sufficient. So here, I think seeing that we just did the big one for BPO, I think we're going to try to be self-sufficient on these. And then just reach out to Leslie's team for the coaching and the reading of it. But yes, she's in an emergency now. We have to do 4 very quickly.
Yeah, so having somebody lead a program doesn't necessarily mean you're changing your approval processes. So we have defined processes of who's final reviewers before everything goes live, as well as we do some test runs with our sales teams on the actual story. Is it flowing? A lot of times we're including salespeople in the message development from the start with cross-functional teams. But you know, having somebody champion a project versus your entire processes you have in place for your final deliverables are two different things in my view.